Mr. Patino here with another read to you, Chapter 2 of Jar Dreams by Yoshiko Uchida. Chapter 2. When I got back from Papa's shop, Joji was home sitting at the kitchen table chewing on a piece of ice. You know you're not supposed to chip off ice off the block, I warned him. You know that Mama said about the icebox. Joji pushed his felt beanie down over his forehead and reminded me that Mama wouldn't find him out if I kept my mouth shut. Besides, he said, he deserved the ice because he hadn't done his lessons for Japanese language school, and old sourpuss had rapped him on the knuckles with the ruler. When I heard that, I relented. Okay, then, I said. After all, I figured I could afford to be a little generous with Josie since I have been excused from going to Japanese language school for the rest of the year. The reason this great thing happened was because I was so skinny. The school nurse sent Mama a note suggesting I drink 2 extra glasses of milk every day and cut down on my after school activities. Of course, Mama told me immediately that I could skip Japanese language school for a while because she worries about my health. I couldn't have been more thrilled because going to Japanese language school after regular school was just one more thing to make me different from my classmates. Of course, I missed seeing Tammy there, and I knew that she'd be ahead of me when I get back next year. But, well, you can't have everything. I watched Oji crunching and chewing on his piece of ice and told him about Aunt Waka. "Ah, gee," he moaned. "What is she coming for?" "To see Mama, of course," I said. "After all, she was her only sister." "Well, where's she going to sleep?" When I told Joji I'd probably have to give her my room, Joji seemed relieved. But before he felt too good about that, I informed him I'd probably have to move in with him and his dog Maxwell, who sleeps in a box at the foot of his bed. "You better give old Maxie a bath before I move in," I told him. "What for?" Joji wanted to know. "Because he stinks," I said. "He does not. He does too." "Does not. Does too. Doesn't," Joey muttered under his breath. I didn't pay attention to Joji for a while. I was busy washing the rice for supper, swishing it around and around in the pan. I rinsed it over and over until the water wasn't milky anymore and had turned clear. Then I filled the pan with water up to the first knuckle of my third finger the way Mama told me to. And I put the pan on the stove so rice would be ready to cook when Mama got home. Joji has spread his school books all over the kitchen table right on top of the mess Mama had left, and his nose stuck in one of his books. "I'm going out to get eggs now," I told him. And then, just before I let the screen door bang behind him, I yelled, "Does, Joji, Maxwell does so stink." And I ran out before he could answer back. I'm pretty good at getting Joji's goat. I love to tease him because Cal's always doing it to me. Poor old Joji. I guess sometimes he gets it from both Cal and me, and that's probably why he has a dog. 2 years ago, he adopted this forlorn-looking basset hound that followed him home from school one day. He named him Maxwell after his shop teacher, Mr. Maxwell Thornberry, and took him about just every place he ever went. Once he even tried to put him in up front near the handlebars of his bike and ride him around with his arms around him. It was the most comical sight I'd ever saw. Personally, I thought Maxwell was just about the homeliest dog I'd ever seen in my entire life. He looked like an old man draped in a piece of brown velvet that was too long, with leftover cloth hanging in thick folds under his skin. Not only that, his long droopy ears dragged on the ground. He had sad, wet eyes and huge, thick paws with splayed toes. I mean, who could love a dog like that except my brother Joji, age 9, who was a bit on the homely side himself. Joji is growing sideways instead of up, and like me, he also missed out on the wavy hair and large eyes, but he's not skinny like I am. He is definitely on the plump side. That's because he loves to eat. He eats almost as much rice as Papa. He often has 4 bowls of rice for supper, and whatever Joji earns some pennies or a nickel for running errands for our neighbor, Miss Sugarman, I call her Miss Sugar, he spends on a penny candy instead of putting it in his going to college jar like he's supposed to. His jar has more air in it than money, but mine, I'm happy to say, is almost half full. The trouble is, I can hardly ever have a chance to earn any money. I can't get a real honest to goodness job like Cal, and Miss Sugar says she wouldn't send a young lady like me on errands to the corner store. Mostly I get money from helping Mama or on birthdays. I told Miss Sugar I wouldn't mind doing errands, but she said no. She'd have Joji go to the store for her, and she'd like me to sit and have tea or cocoa and conversations with her. Well, that's okay too, because I could eat Miss Sugar's spice cake and ginger cookies all day. And besides, she's a kind, kindred soul I really can talk to. I still wish I could run an errand for her every once in a while. Anyway, I felt good about getting the last word with Joji that afternoon. I went out to confront the chickens in their yard out back. It's my job every day to collect their eggs from the nest Papa made for them out of old apple boxes. But to tell the honest truth, I never liked those chickens. I have this awful feeling that one day they're going to pounce on me with their sharp claws and peck me to death for coming every day to take their eggs away from them. I especially try to avoid the mean old rooster who glares at me with his black beady eyes. A long time ago, when I was little, Cal told me I could become invisible if I held my breath. So the entire time I was in the chicken yard, I used to try to hold my breath. It practically exploded by the time I came staggering out with the eggs. Of course, I no longer believe I became invisible, but I still hold my breath anyways. When I'm in the chicken yard. I guess it's a habit I always have, like peeling my hangnails until they bleed. Mama, on the other hand, loves those old hens and talks to them like they're her friends. She thanks them for laying their eggs and tells them she'd never be able to bake her sponge cakes without them. Mama also talks to the flowers and vegetables she got planted in the backyard. If anyone who didn't know Mama ever had her heard jabbering to herself in the backyard, I suppose they think she wasn't quite right in the head. But it's not that. It's just that Mama is an extremely friendly soul and talks to just about anybody or anything. By the time I came inside with the eggs that day, Mama was home and was already in the kitchen wearing her apron. Usually the first thing she does when she sees me is, "How was school today?" But the but that day the first thing she said was, "What do you think, Rinko? Your Aunt Waka's coming to visit us this summer." "I know," I said. I guess I spoiled her surprise. So I explained how I couldn't wait and had gone to have Papa read the letter to me. Mama didn't seem to mind that I already knew. She was excited about her sister coming. After all, Aunt Waka was her only sister, and Mama hadn't seen her the day she'd sailed for America over 20 years ago to come marry Papa. I always wondered how Mama could do such a thing. I mean, leave behind her entire family and sail to a foreign country to marry a man she'd never seen before? I knew I'd never do a thing like that, but Mama said that's what a lot of Japanese women did in those days. We had faith in our go-betweens who arranged good marriages for us, she told me, and it all worked out, didn't it? I guess it did all right, because here we are in Berkeley, California. Mama, Papa, my two brothers, and me. Mama was already talking about all the things we do when Aunt Waka got here and places we'd like to show her. Then she said, "You wouldn't mind giving her room, will you, Rinko? You can move in with Joji as soon as Cal leaves for Stockton." "I guess not," I said, not sounding wildly enthusiastic. "As long as Joji gives Maxwell a good scrubbing." Mama ignored that last remark and went right on talking as though everything was all settled. So I went to look at the back bedroom to see if I could stand being there with Joji and Maxwell for the whole summer. The sun was streaming in from the window, and it looked like Mama and looked out on Mama's petunias and Delilahs, and I could see her string bean vines just beginning to climb up the poles. I decided then that might not be such a bad place to spend summer. My own bedroom's in the middle of the house between Kyle and Joji's room in the back and Mama and Papa's room in the front. There are doors to each their rooms, and there's also a door leading to a small hall where the bathroom is. So my room has 3 doors, and everyone's always trampling through my room to get from one place to another. Also, my room is rather dismal because it only has one window that looks out on the peeling paint on the side of Miss Sugar's house. But when I shut all the doors and sit at my desk by the window, it's sort of like being in a dark cave. I feel secure and safe. I have 3 do not disturb signs to hang on my doorknobs when I want to be left alone to read or write in my notebook or just think about life in general. Then even Joji knows better to disturb me. He'll go around through the sun porch to get to wherever he's going, which Cal often does anyways, and Mom and Papa will use the other door that leads into the parlor. But actually, I don't hang up my signs very often. I usually leave all the doors in my room open because I can be a very accommodating person when I want to be. I decided to see how Cal Beth felt since I'd be sleeping in it all summer. Just as I was bouncing up and down on it, listening to the spring squeak, Cal came walking into the room. I wasn't expecting him home so early because he usually stayed at the university to study until almost supper time. He said he couldn't concentrate at home with me and Joji hanging around, but I knew that wasn't the real reason. I knew he stayed to study with his girlfriend, Kayo, who lived in Stockton. And naturally, that was one of the reasons he was going there to work for the summer, although he'd never admit that. Hey, what do you think you're doing in my bed, Rink? Cal asked, sounding not too friendly. I didn't budge, but I did stop bouncing. I'm just trying it out, I told him, since I'll be sleeping here when Aunt Waka comes. Yeah, I heard, Cal said, but she's not here yet, so get moving. I know when I know when to do as Cal says, so I slid off the bed. When I was out of reach, I said, "Okay, California, I'm off your bed." "Would you call me Rink?" he said, definitely a menacing look on his face. "I called you California. Your real, honest, and true given name by Uncle Kanda to commemorate your birth in this glorious state," I said. "Okay, Rink, you asked for it." And just as Cal came lunging at me, I ran screaming towards the sun porch. "Just be glad you weren't born in Minnesota," I shouted over my shoulders, "or be calling you Minnie, ha ha." If I hadn't run into Papa just as he came into the back door, I knew Cal would have grabbed me and given me what for. Fortunately, Papa stepped between us and said calmly, "Why don't you try to behave though as one of you are older?" That put Cal in his place immediately. I told Papa he just saved my life, but Papa didn't seem to hear me, and he didn't even answer when Mama called him. "What's wrong, Papa?" I asked him. Papa didn't answer. He just looked distracted, and that's when I knew something was definitely bothering Papa. That's chapter 2. Hope you enjoyed it.